In today's episode, I sit down with Molly Thompson, someone who spent years navigating success that looked right on paper, but didn't feel right in practice. At Beats Working, we explore what happens when the goals you've been chasing were never yours to begin with. Molly shares how her perspective shifted from trying to fit into someone else's definition of success to building work rooted in impact, alignment, and self-expression. Why the shift was more about working with herself instead of against herself. It's a conversation about identity and impact, about redefining success on your own terms.
Welcome to Beats Working, Winning the Game of Work, hosted by Dan T. Rogers. This show invites you into conversations that go deeper than job titles and hustle. It's about rethinking what work is for and how we can design it to serve our lives, rather than the other way around. Here, we'll talk with leaders, makers, and thinkers who are doing more than earning a paycheck. They're getting paid to practice life.
Terms. Molly, thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me here. I'm so excited about this conversation because when we first met, the first couple of conversations, we went all the way there, right out of the gate. And that is so rare for me. And I loved it. So I'm thrilled to be here with you.
Yeah, well, thank you for joining us. And I'm looking forward to it as well. So maybe with sort of that context in mind, since we did go so deep so fast, maybe a little bit, and I don't want to put you on the spot and get the whole entire lifeline, but maybe just to frame it out for people, how you would describe your sort of work life up to this point at whatever level you'd like to share.
What comes right out of my head is, and not having a big filter, is up until a few years ago, it was like an awkward first date where, it sounds great on paper. And then once you're into it, you're like, wow, this sucks. This is not as advertised.
Sure. Yeah.
A lot of that was, I spent so much of my life fighting against myself, against my natural self-expression. And, we talk a lot about the gap in the gain and the ideal. That was me, trying to fit into, trying to chase the horizon where you see it out there, but you can never get there. And so if you spend your time and your energy chasing a measurement that was never yours in the first place, it's not very satisfying in the end, and it's exhausting. And it's kind of, I don't want to say bankrupt, but it sort of is in a way, because it's just not gratifying. And so then I think a lot of that turned around a couple of things. I started working with my husband, and people are like, wow, really? How's that going? I'm like, great. But then about 4 years ago, I got diagnosed with ADHD, and it was like seeing in color for the first time. Suddenly I'm like, oh, now I understand it. And then I'm in this community of people who are a yes and, in this entrepreneurial group where people are like, that's a great idea. And before, I've been in different communities where people are like, I don't value your opinion. I actually was told that once by somebody in a meeting. That was really awesome. And I almost believed him too.
Yeah.
But it was really being willing and able to put myself out there and to go way out on the skinny little branches, because deep down, I knew that the path we were headed was a great path for us. And so I've been proving that out over the past 4 years. And we had 2025, we had a huge jump in our business. And now we're looking at, okay, how do we keep that party going? So, it started off many years trying to fit into somebody else's measuring stick or trying to measure up to somebody else's goals. And then now creating my own path. And that is way more fun and interesting. And we have a lot of fun in our meetings with our clients, and they love it because they get to see, it doesn't have to be, this, fun is one of our core values. Because it's a matter, self-expression, being able to be self-expressed is so important to us that we bring all of that into our client meetings. And we've even written our contracts so that they are values-based. Our company values are written into the contracts so that our clients know what they're getting. And that is a totally different way of looking at things.
Absolutely, yeah. So I don't want to. I mean, there was a lot in that, so thank you for that. And I'm sort of tempted to sort of jump to present day, and we'll certainly get there. But knowing a little bit about your history and your story, not all of it, but a little bit of it, I know that you were successful. And I definitely heard what you said, that the success was a little empty because it was sort of maybe defined by others or whatever. But maybe touch on a little bit of what that was, so folks maybe potentially can relate or not relate with what that looks like. Because I think, I don't know, it would seem to me there's some percentage of folks that would be really surprised with, say, 10 years ago, your life, and when you said it looked great on paper and all that, that they were like, why wasn't that great? So maybe tell us a little bit about what that was, and then because I'd ultimately like to be able to sort of compare the two, but we need something to compare too. Yeah.
So let's see here, 2016. Well, the week before Christmas of 2015, I had just been let go from my last job. So it wasn't really being fired, but my contract wasn't renewed. I was running a business incubator at a university, and I had changed the whole program, created a program, put processes and systems in place, gotten trained up, done a bunch of business pitch competitions, like developed all of that. And at the end of the day, I had 3 bosses, which is, I mean, that should be a red flag right there. But one of them said, we just want worker bees. And I'm like, what? Like, that doesn't even make sense. I'm just coming off of what could be viewed as a very humiliating, just, took it on the chin, felt like garbage. Like, I put everything I had into it. And then it was like, you're not what we want. So that kind of rejection was, and it was, on the one hand, I had people in the community say, this is amazing. For Toledo, Ohio, that we had a business pitch competition, and I brought all local food vendors into it. And, I raised money for it really like easily, but I just had no sense of what my unique ability, what the things that I was gifted at. And so I was always trying to do what other people wanted me to do. And it's really challenging to be successful inside of that. I mean, it can do that. So I had, if you look at my resume, like, I raised a lot of money. I, worked with a couple hundred entrepreneurs, and I built this program, but it was just empty. And I thought, okay, there's got to be more to this. So I started looking at like, well, what do I want to do? And then I did it again a little bit more. But then my husband was like, he had just started a company, and he's like, I really need your help. And so I started doing that, and it was pretty effortless to go out into my network and get contacts, because it's people I knew and people who liked me and I liked them, and we had these great conversations. And I started seeing success that way. And so it was just starting to look at like, well, what did we do there that worked? And what are we doing differently in this business? Like, I know we provide something way different from how other contractors typically work. And our then customers loved us, because we would say, well, what are your goals? And they would be like, well, what do you mean? So we would help them define their goals. And we kind of had an idea of like, here are the top 3 or 5. But then it was like, well, what about your employee morale and productivity? We knew that if you provide, so we were in the commercial LED lighting space then. And we knew that if you provide better lighting for your team, they feel better, because it sends a signal that you value the work that they do. And so that was always a big surprise to them.
If we think about, when with what you're doing today, what if you were to say, like, and this isn't really a fair question, but I'm asking it anyways. But
good. Right? I love those.
Yeah. So if you're going to say like the one thing that's really different from today to say 2000, because you said that happened, we'll say like from 2014.
Yeah.
Like from 2014 to 2026, what's the one thing that's really different for you today?
Oh, okay. I can answer that one pretty quickly.
Okay, great.
So, I think you and I have talked before about being wired for impact instead of wired for results. Like, how do I make a difference in somebody else's world? So that's what we do now. Like, the work that we do now is 100% based on making a difference for our clients. And we measure that. Like, how are we going? Like, we measure our projects with economic, environmental, educational, and social impact. So being able to do that and being 100% focused on, does this meet their mission? Is this consistent with where they told us they were headed? So that's a very different way to go than, oh, we sold them 1,000 widgets. So it's really getting clear about where they're headed. And that's our mission, is providing mission-driven projects for them. And that requires, clarity in the vision. Are we rowing in the same direction? And are we consistently on the same page? And have we helped them create a vision that their stakeholders can buy into? And then how are we going to measure that? So it's so changing from selling revenue that benefits us, selling widgets or driving revenue, to driving impact. I would say stop. We don't focus on us. We focus on them.
Yeah. And what, again, just maybe top of your head, just what your first impression would be with the folks that you're running into. How many of them do you feel like they have a clear vision of what it is they're trying to do?
That's a really good question. It totally depends. But I would say, one of them, we're working with a group of Franciscan sisters, and they own a university. And so their mission is driven by the Pope. We don't have very many clients on, I can count on one finger the number who have a mandate from the Pope. It's kind of cool. But most people don't. Like, they have a concept or an idea, and they, I would say most of them have like a mission statement or a sense of their values. But that's really awesome for us to go in and work with them. So either we work with them to help them get clear about what that is, or we work with them to say, okay, this is where we're coming from. Does this land for you? Like, if the Pope's mandate is care for the common home, which is Earth, so that's what we measure. And then I had at one of the events I attended right before we kicked off the project, one of the sisters pulled me aside and said, "What legacy are you going to help us leave?" And I was like, "Okay, challenge accepted." So now we know that, for this project, all the money that we're saving for them, instead of just, hey, great, now you've saved this money, now we get to reinvest it into either a legacy fund for them or into programs that are important to them. So that's kind of the work that we do, but you have to be willing to get out of your own way and make this 100% not about you and your company. And, and being willing to, relationships is everything for us. So, to answer the question, I guess, marginally succinctly, it depends. I mean, I think people have a sense of what their mission or vision or values are, but sometimes it's kind of like a rah-rah organizational thing. But then to actually connect it to a project is something completely different.
Yeah. So I know you, and I think anyone listening can already sort of feel the passion and the emotion that virtually no one with a soul would probably question your intent. But because it is business, and I know that you're usually focused on mission-driven entities and all that, but do you find people sort of questioning whether or not, like, you're like your lack of an angle or your willingness to just jump on board with their impact, like, do you get any resistance to that? Any sort of doubters?
Oh, hell yes.
Yeah.
Yes, 100%. So
Which is a whole nother conversation. Like, how jaded are all of we that we're like, well, you
Yes.
just couldn't just have my interest at heart. But anyway, but go ahead.
Right.
Sorry.
So, I think one of the biggest learnings for me personally is having worked so hard against myself and trying to kind of, I don't know if you want to say like please others, but you could say it that way. And just having a whole lifetime of that and then letting go of it and starting to kind of ride the horse in the direction it's going, it's a lot easier. And it really caught me off guard. Like really, why don't other people do this? But yes, we get people who say that like, that doesn't make sense. So there are a couple things. One is if they're not open to it, they're not going to be one of our clients. That is 100%. And it makes it really pretty clear for us. Like, and we, there was a project that we really wanted to do. It'd be a really big project. It'd be a really cool project. But this person had, like, they knew how it was going to go. And like, we can smell that a mile away. Like, okay, then you don't need our help. And I told them that. I was like, if you want to, it sounds like you already have a pretty good inkling of how this is going to go, and you're going to overpay for it, and you're going to get what you're going to get, and it's probably going to take twice as long. And, because I'm a pretty direct person, it's like, I don't want to spend more time. And I said, I don't want to waste your time or mine. But if you decide that you want to create something that's really going to have measurable impact in a way that will last, many years, you come back to us anytime. Our door is open. And otherwise, we wish you the best of luck. And we do. But yes, this is really interesting because there are so many people who have always done it this way. This is the way you do it. And to be willing to push back against that is, it makes it even more important for me to surround myself with people who are in that kind of yes and, who see the value that we provide. And whether it's, so we were looking at hiring a fractional CFO, and the guy's really smart, but from a culture standpoint, I was like, there's no way. Like, he's not entrepreneurially wired, and I can see this is going to end badly. And then we were also talking to another organization, and when I said things, they're like, oh, so you want to do things by project? It, like, they heard what I said, they understood it, and it was like, this is a great fit. So, ultimately, it's probably a time saver. But yes, I think there are so many people who that they've always done things a certain way. And to change that is, it's uncomfortable. It can be scary. It can cause you to go in directions that may be a good thing, maybe not. But if you don't have that willingness or that, that kind of, I don't want to say fearlessness, because it's not that, because I get fearful, but I just will do things anyway because I know deep inside that we're headed in the right direction.
Yeah. Well, I the reason I was asking is, so as an individual, if I'm talking to someone, professional, personal, whatever, I can get fairly obsessed about an intellectual concept, right? And I want to be accurate.
Yeah.
But when we set up our systems are set up to help people figure out what they want and how to get it. And it's just way easier to take people where they want to go than to force them into your own way.
Right.
And so we just say no to a lot of people. I mean, historically, like we're not everybody's fit. But it really
There's so much value in that, though, Dan.
Oh, wait, well, it's just way easier. Yeah, yeah.
Casting, I tell people all the time, narrow your focus, and it's so counterintuitive. Like, people think, oh, and I got to spread the net wide. And I'm like, no, absolutely not. You narrow your focus. That's going to give you the biggest results. So that you do that, and you do that over and over and over again. And then you can kind of spread that open and go wide. But until then, narrowing your focus is the best.
Yeah. Well, and I think there are people out there that they wouldn't use these words, but I don't listen to what people say. I just watch what they do. What they do will tell you the truth. They may or may not. When people misspeak or aren't truthful with their words, it's usually from a lack of awareness, as best I can tell. There's very few people out there that are intentionally lying. But if you judge their actions based on their versus their words, there's usually a massive misalignment.
Oh.
And so they would never use these words. But I think a lot of business still is set up with the idea that they want it to be adversarial. They really do want it to be adversarial. People quack about partners and collaboration and all this other nonsense. But if you really look at how it's set up, it's like, is this really how we would do a partnership or collaboration? Yeah.
I think it's worse than adversarial. It's like me first. If I don't win, I'm going to take my toys and go home. It's because that does not allow for collaboration in the first place. And I guess I look at it like, I love this conversation. I think in today's world, things are made to be binary. It's either this or that. It's black or white. It's us versus them. And that is not how the world works.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
well, it's a very easy story to tell. It may or may not be accurate, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and so I think it's usually a massive oversimplification, right?
Yep. Yeah, but if you there's also strength in numbers and, the whole us versus them thing. Yeah, you can, get safety in numbers that way, but is it really representative of what you think? Because then when, like you said, when you ask people, they're probably not malicious, but they say things that are like, really?
Yeah. Or I think a lot of times they're just showing up the way they think they're supposed to.
Yes.
And so they're playing a game with a set of rules that's just business, right? It's just business, right?
Just in a little box.
Well, just you, but whatever. And so then they conduct themselves the way they think they're supposed to.
Right.
Not really looking at like, well, what, I mean, frequently people are a little mystified when they talk to me because they're like, what's your angle? I'm like, I don't have an angle. Like,
Well, what do you mean?
how do you not have an angle? I'm like, because mine's already provided for. Like, I don't want to be super grandiose. I have a very small life, pretty small aspirations or whatever. But in the grand scheme of things, I'm provided for, so I don't have to have an angle. Like, we can just contribute. But and it will frequently throw people. And there are some people who eventually will come around, and then, unfortunately, I think there are some people that just, for whatever reason, they either don't want to change how they're
really
doing
uncomfortable to change.
Yeah. And I think they just
Or
don't want
can't
to
be.
trust. Yeah.
And there's that fear of, if I screw it up, I'm going to look bad. So it kind of goes back to that, how do I appear in front of others? When like we're all told you have to, fit into this box or whatever. And it ain't necessarily so.
Yeah. So one of the things that I've heard you say more than once, and we've talked about it a little bit, but I would love for you maybe to tell me more, and maybe even some of the same stuff you said before when we weren't recording, about energy to impact, and what does that mean, and why should somebody think about energy to impact?
So for our business model, we are in the business of working with organizations, primarily nonprofits, to help them turn energy into impact. So literally what that means is, like, we're working on one of our projects right now is doing a carport canopy, a solar canopy in a parking lot of a university. And it's taking that project and turning it into impact. So we know we're going to offset 100% of the energy usage of one of the biggest buildings on campus. And we're going to save a whole bunch of money that they can then channel into a legacy fund for the sisters, or put back into programs to like help the poor or people who are underserved. And so we're helping them measure that. So turning energy into impact is literally what we do. But as a systems thinker, like, how else can we apply this? I looked at this from the like high achieving women entrepreneurs with ADHD. And the more people I talk to, like, you know, it's like, oh, we need hacks to be more productive. And I'm like, no, we absolutely do not. Like, as high achieving women, especially those of us who are entrepreneurially wired, we are pretty darn good at being productive. Like, we got that box checked. But what I do find is so many people are struggling with, am I making a difference? Am I doing what I said I would do? Am I taking care of my parents or my kids or my family? Like all of the things that women are wired for sufficiency in relationships. So how do we take the energy that we have naturally and channel that into impact for ourselves so that we feel more alive in the work that we do every day? And then we can channel that out into the world. We're pretty good at, you know, making sure everything's covered. But what about us? And people really struggle with that. And I know for me, for many decades, most of my life, I fundamentally thought that there was something wrong with me. And what I mean by that is I didn't fit into the mold I talked to Dan Sullivan about this once. I was like, I don't know why I knew it was since the age of 12. Maybe that's kind of when I was becoming self-aware. But I knew that I was different. I looked at the world differently. Like I had this group of friends, but also at the age of 12, it's, you know, if you're in a very kind of homogenous community, standing out is not necessarily a great thing for a tween girl. But, and so I struggled with that. But I looked at like, how do I, you know, once I got diagnosed with ADHD and I realized, oh my gosh, I don't have to fight against myself. So how do I take all this energy and turn it into something that's meaningful? So we've done it in our business. And I thought the more people I talk to, especially women, they're like, oh my gosh, how you just described yourself, that's me. Like they saw something possible in themselves. So I look at that and say, really turning energy into impact is, it's a business model, but that's how I look at the world. Can I work with people? Can I support people? And having them take all the energy that they already have and channel it into something that is useful or meaningful or compelling or, you know, fun or whatever that is that really resonates with them. And so, you know, that's what I'm doing is looking to create that community because I want people to know they're not alone because I felt so isolated and alone. And you know this as an entrepreneur, it can be really isolating because we were just talking about like, you know, people are like, no, that's the stupidest idea I've ever heard of. Like, why would you do that? And I'm like, I can't tell you why. I just know it's the right thing. You know, I mean, I could, but so it's really kind of a beacon for other people to know you're not alone in this. Keep going. And there's a lot of people like you and there's nothing wrong. You're not bent. You're not broken. Your brain is wired differently. So, you know, just it's an encouragement for people to really lean into that and then to not be so afraid to connect with others. And, you know, to me, that's where true exponential impact is born, is when you start to get a sense of like, oh, I am okay. And then you can reframe or recreate, you know, what your story is. It's not bad. There's nothing wrong with you. And then you start to look out in the world and see there are a lot of other people who are just like me. I'm going to go find them and I'm going to go collaborate with them. And that's where the impact happens. So that was kind of where that came about. And I love it because I see it all over the place. And also, it had to be something that was so simple that even I could remember it.
Yeah.
That's kind of a sidebar.
Yeah. Well, I love the sort of literal application. And then obviously it abstracts out all the way as you just so really eloquently.
It does. And as we were working on the first kind of flagship project for this concept and what we were doing, and I was like, oh my God, because everyone we went to, so part of it was I had to go raise all the money for the project, 1.55 million. And people would always say, well, basically, what's in it for us? You know, public agencies, donors, all of that. And the more I would put together talking points, I was like, oh, these are fitting into different buckets. And that's where I came up with the kind of different pillars of impact. And then it was like, okay, well, there's no way this is a one-off project. Like, I just see other projects could be done this way. And then it just, as we went on, it kind of developed into this business model that it is now.
Yeah. So you mentioned ADHD and that you were diagnosed a few years ago. Any sort of insights around that you'd want to share? Because my bet is there has to be some percentage of folks walking around who have no idea, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe may or may not have some idea. So what was that journey like for you?
So I'm kind of giving the like laugh because when I first was telling people about it, and I was kind of nervous because some of these people I've known for, many decades, and I didn't know, are they going to laugh at me? Like, there was a little bit an element of that, and some of my friends, it was pretty funny because half of them were like, and the last horse crosses the finish line. Like, how did you not know this? And I'm like, why didn't you tell me? And then, the other half was like, what? Surprise. So it's very interesting. But part of that evolution was in 2016, I was like, I just feel like all the like strategies and coping mechanisms in my world, they're just not as effective as they used to be. So, of course, now looking back, it's like, okay, so there's, menopause and there's hormones and there's like all the things. And as you get older and becoming a parent, all those things impact, especially for women. And so I went to see a psychologist and she was like, oh, honey. She's someone I really love and adore. And she's like, oh, honey, this is like textbook ADHD. And I was like, I got my, knickers in a twist a little bit because I was like, almost offended.
Yeah, sure.
I went to see her to ask her, and then I was almost offended.
Yeah.
So go figure. But then I went to a functional psychiatrist, and I went through, like a pretty extensive half day of tests, and put the little beanie on my head, and all the electrodes, and all the tests that she did. And she was like, no, I think it's anxiety and a little bit of depression. So, like, put me on Wellbutrin or something like that. And like a year later, nothing. And I was like, all right, well, that's really weird. And so I kind of went my way for another couple years. And then the wheels came off the wagon and I was at home and I was to my husband, I was like, oh my God, I think there's something wrong with me. And he's like, well, do you need to go to the hospital? And I said, no, like I'm not having a medical issue. I'm having like an existential or like a psychological, like there's something that has stopped functioning and making it like, I just can't keep doing things this way anymore. So I went back to the same psychologist. And by the way, she specializes in ADHD, kind of an important side note. And she was like, well, still there, like it doesn't just go away. And I went back to the same functional psychiatrist and I said, we got to re-explore this. And she said, oh, well, yeah, now that, we talked through it. And she said, well, I guess you might have ADHD. Do you want to try meds? And I, at that point, was waving the white flag. And I was like, yeah, sure. But it's like I've learned a lot I had been an advocate for my parents and for other family members. So I'm really good at that. But advocating for myself was a whole different thing. And it kind of fits into what we were talking about is being willing to say, yes, I am swimming upstream. I'm the salmon in the sea of other people who are going a different direction, but I know this is the right direction for me. And really taking a stand for myself. And then I went through a year-long training program. And I mean, that just opened up everything. And that was with Andre Brisson. And that was amazing because it was like, oh my gosh, I have a whole new framework and vocabulary and a way to describe things. I don't have to fight against myself. I just now am myself. And so that's been, it's been really wonderful. And then it's kind of been, like proving it out over the last 4 or so or however many years. And I'm always going to encounter people who are like, well, I don't think that you have ADHD. I'm like, okay, like good for you. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
But, like to your point, like there's always going to be people who, there will always be people who say, I don't see it that way. Well, that's great.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's very interesting to me that so many of us have such strong opinions about other people's stuff.
Yeah.
And I always tell people, I'm like, look, it's not virtue. I'm entirely too self-centered to just really care. Like I have very strong opinions about myself and about what I'm supposed to do. I'm far too self-centered to extend them to what you should do. Yeah. I hope I can provide you some strong reference, either like, oh my gosh, what you're doing is so clearly wrong. I know what to do. Or, gosh, you were bound to be right once, so you're finally doing something that I agree with, right? So, a huge part of what just seems to fuel so much nonsense is we're all so obsessed with telling other people what they should do, be, and act. And I'm just like, why?
So,
why? I mean, I would never listen to someone else.
Well, so it's funny that you mentioned that and it's true, but I've had a number of conversations with Andre, and he talked with Kathy Colby of the Colby Assessment and Colby Corp about like being a caricature or a character of yourself. And I was like, oh my gosh, that resonates so much with me. And then I go back to, when I was running the incubator and working with a bunch of entrepreneurs, they wanted me to tell the entrepreneurs, here's what you're going to do. Step 1, do this. And I was like, that's not my job. My job is not to tell you if your idea is a good one. My job is to give you the tools so that you get to explore this and learn this for yourself. Yeah. Because it doesn't matter what my opinion of your product or service or widget is. It's a matter of, do you have what it takes, first of all, to be an entrepreneur? Because it is not for the faint of heart. And second of all, are you willing to do what it takes to get it out there in the world? Because most people are not. It's hard. And, people don't want to be told their baby is ugly. And that's exactly what happens as an entrepreneur. So you have to be willing to hear your baby's ugly from a lot of people. Some you admire, some you don't even know. But it's that, so it was just like, I look back to that experience and that was so great for me because I learned a lot about, learning the tools myself so that I could teach other people, not tell them what I think about it, but just teach them. Yeah. So that, we kind of bring that into our business is how do we teach them about this, not just tell them this is the way that it is. Yeah. They're used to being told the way that it is, but they appreciate, like getting something deeper.
Yeah, I'm hopeful that assuming that we're fortunate enough to be around in years to come, that we will be moving further and further away from that. I mean, I think what's unfortunate, good, bad, right, or wrong, is certainly at some point in the past, the whole certainty card made a lot of sense, and if you stay the course and all that, but it's so clearly not. Like, I mean, if the one thing that we know is that we don't know a damn thing.
I know,
right?
It's true.
And I have profound respect for all of the traditions. And to me, they're just traditions. You can call them religions, you can call them science, you can call them mathematics. I think they're just traditions. They're traditions. That's what they are, right? And I have respect for them just because I call them tradition. I don't have respect for them. But they're all sort of in a place now where at some point in the past, they had a nice little certainty bubble where they could say, this is how it is. And a doctor today, God bless them, or whatever you should do with it. They're not that, but what they're armed with is a whole bunch of information that they can't possibly assimilate. And what we've really figured out is that we don't know a damn thing, right? We know enough to know that we don't really know anything. And I'm more than comfortable with that. Like that to me is just an honest statement. But at one point
you're curious
in time,
though, right? Like you're curious about things.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
But and I'm sort of making this up arbitrary, but 40 years ago, if you went to the doctor, a doctor knew, and this is how it was.
But you know why? Because I actually, my uncle died a couple years ago, and he was like 96, I think. And he was the guy in the small town in Iowa, and he birthed people. He, he was there cradle to grave for, a lot of people. But back then, the doctors were trained to understand people and listen to them and the cause and effect of it all. And now the specialties are so narrow. So this is the opposite of narrow your focus.
Oh,
but
100%.
This is, a specialty so narrow, and yet you don't interact with other doctors to see, this blew me away in work in kind of supporting my parents is, okay, you're all in the same health system. No one's talking to each other. And you're like, okay, there's nothing else we can do. And I'm like, what? And then you go to the next doctor and they're like, oh, well, this is what's going on. So it is, people, it's like you get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller in your understanding of things instead of, well, how does this fit in with everything else? So I don't know if it's a lack of curiosity or if that gets like educated out of people. I don't know, but it's.
Well, I think we're just in and it's probably, and don't even get me started on AI, but I think we're just in a window of time. We're in a gap, and I do mean the word gap, of where we have just enough to understand that we don't know a damn thing. Yeah. And when the world was smaller and the set of human knowledge was smaller, we could delude ourselves in that very small and incomplete model of thinking that we knew what we're talking about. We've popped the model, and all we've really come up with is we don't know, which I'm more than comfortable with. I see reality as unsolvable complexity. I don't have an answer. I have better questions, right? So I think it's just actually, it affords us the opportunity for us to get super honest, which is it's above our pay grade, period, right? That doesn't mean that we shouldn't have agency and that we don't have to make decisions, but that certainty is just something that I'm a spiritual person, as you know. I refer to that spirit as the boss. Yeah. The boss gave us a whole bunch of great things. Apparently, they decided that certainty wasn't one of them, at least in any sort of scale.
You know what, though? So there are a few people in my life who I've known for many years who I always knew as being curious and like would get in trouble for being like exploring things in school, who now have told me I don't have a growth mindset. And I'm like, that's such a bummer. But there is that certainty, and what that certainty provides is that they're right and I'm wrong. And I'm like, wow.
I have very strong opinions about this, but so to me, certainty is a mental construct, which is the nicest way I can say that it's fucking made up. It's mental masturbation. Yeah, it's just a framework that makes me feel good. The universe may or may not respect it, probably doesn't, right? And so I think certainty, like mental masturbation, is an effective tool when used for what it is. When I need certainty to say, I'm going to take this action because I have confidence in it, and so I have my own individual certainty that I'm doing the right thing, and that helps me move forward with confidence and grace and all that. That's fantastic. That doesn't mean that the universe agrees with me, though. Right? Yeah. So I think
there's it's that level of comfort too. Like people want to just be comfortable. So like going out on those skinny little branches. Yeah. People who are like, why are you doing? Why? And I'm like, well, that's the wrong question. First of all, why is because I love it and it's so interesting and fun and engaging and all those things. But it's a very here's what I'll say. Certainty is very limiting because if you're willing to say, I don't know, that's a great start because then you don't have a ceiling on you. If there is certainty, there's only so far you can go, right? Like there's only, there's a ceiling, and after that, that's the end.
Well, and I unless it's something of very small scale or massive, like I'm going to die someday, I just don't think it exists. And the two most dangerous words I have are I know, which is certainty.
Yeah.
That's why it's on this arm with the rest of the sins, right? I call it the ninth deadly sin. I found two more.
Oh.
The Pope only has 7. I have 9.
So there's a book called On Our Best Behavior, written by this woman called Elise Lonin. It's a book that I've recommended more than probably any other book ever. And it's about patriarchy.
Sure.
And what happened when organized religion started. And it is fascinating. It's one of the coolest books because it's like the first half of it is like a textbook. It's the factual like history of it. There's not an opinion about it. And then the second half is talking a lot about kind of her perspective on it. It's so fascinating. But
and what was
kind
it
of
again? Just on our best behavior?
On Our Best Behavior by
Okay.
Elise Lonin. And she has I think it's called Pulling the Thread is her, I don't know, blog or podcast or who knows. But
Cool.
she's fascinating. And I just was like, that's a cool concept. What a way to look at this, because a lot of people are told this is how the world is and they believe it.
Yeah.
And there's no room for exploration. And
Yeah.
that's where certainty gets us all in trouble.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
Well, we are getting close to time. So anything before we wrap up that you want to talk about? We didn't really exclusively talk about the podcast. Do you want to talk about the podcast or no?
Yeah, sure. I think what kind of throws the covers off for me every day
Yeah.
is, and I'd love to know like what throws the covers off for you. And, that's just always a question I have for other people. And then kind of in sharing what that is for me, like I said, it's really, how do I've had all these experiences in the last few years that have changed the trajectory of who I am. Like, I'm not different, but I have been able to fully embrace my self-expression. So maybe I have changed, but it's, I put in a lot of work to go down that path. And it's been really amazing to kind of come out the other side and just I have such a high level of comfort and confidence. And it's not to say that I'm never fearful, because that's not true, or anxious or nervous or all those things, but it just presents differently now. And I can, kind of march forward confidently in the face of all of that. And so I think in creating a community and, at the end of the day, I don't know what will happen with Elevated Achievers, but I do know that I keep talking to people who are like, that's me. Like, I've had that experience. You've given me permission to go investigate this for myself. And all I want to do was talk about it, because I had a few people who said, hey, will you be like open and honest about your experience? And I'm like, yes, because I guess a lot of people are, really guarded or think that there's something bad about it. But when I got diagnosed the second time, I think I made a decision in that moment that I was going to be vocal about it, because I was tired of fighting against myself. And in sharing that, what I'm finding is I'm definitely not alone. There are other people out there, and maybe they don't have the people or the tools or the resources to do anything with it, and there are people that I have talked to who have said, you're one of only, 2 or 3 people I've ever told that I have ADHD, because I'm so afraid of the stigma. And I'm like, oh, that should never be a thing. So I just, and some people are like, well, I don't like that label. And I'm like, then don't use it. I just look at this as I'm committed to something bigger for people who are also committed to something bigger. And why not go down this path together? And so my goal is to really create a community where people see what's possible in themselves by coming together and talking about it and talking through it, and then finding access to create something that maybe they didn't even see possible, or maybe they were too afraid to try, or maybe something that was just, like so scary they didn't even know the next best move for them. So if you have other people who have already been down that path, that is, it provides comfort, it provides community, it provides a whole way to kind of grow and explore and to tap into who you really are in the world. And it gives you that opportunity to do so.
Mm-hmm. And I say this only because it's, to me, another great example of it. It's more energy to impact, right? I mean,
I'm telling you, I really was like, oh my gosh, that was great.
Yeah. Well, I'm, strategic coach has the concept of unique ability or whatever.
Yep.
And they didn't invent it. They just trademarked it. But I mean,
that's a unique ability.
One of Dan's tricks is just to name things and then claim authorship of it.
Name it, claim it.
Yeah. People have been uniquely talented since the dawn of humanity, which I think.
There are very few, if any, unique things in the world at all.
Well, yeah.
So if you have the vision and the ability to turn it into a concept, like I know that there are a lot of concepts in various communities, coach, whatever the community is, where that was not invented by them. But if they were able to put it into a way that I understand it, props to them. Absolutely go forth and prosper.
No, 100%. And I think the benefit of that is that, it saves us 5 paragraphs of describing it or whatever, for sure. So,
yes.
So,
make it simple.
No, I think with if we look at that concept of unique ability, right, I'm been convinced for a large part of my life that high achievers, not probably everyone, but the high achievers, it's just easier to track, is that they really only have one trick. And they just find different ways of doing the same trick.
Energy into impact.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I think that's if you're going to have one trick, it's not a bad trick to have, for sure.
When I kind of realized that sometime in the last year, I mean, I think I was like in my kitchen. I was looking around like, oh my God, I just ding, the big light bulb went off. And it was like, what? Mm-hmm. I can apply this all these places.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it makes it so simple, but it makes it really, it provides a level of clarity. Mm-hmm. So I know if I'm on the right path or not, right? Like if I'm not able to turn energy into impact, it's probably not a fit, or maybe there's something missing that I need to address.
Yeah.
So it's been a way to, provide a lot of clarity for me personally and for our business. So it's I think it provides a great North Star as a reference point, right? To be able to say, hey, is my trajectory set here? For sure. Yeah. Well, great. Well, Molly, I want to thank you so much for your time today. It's been fantastic. I can't wait until the next time we get a chance to do this, whether we record it or not. But I know we'll be talking again in the near future. So thank you so much. Thank you, Dan. This has been wonderful, as I knew it would be, because there's no conversation with you that is not fascinating and fun. So I really appreciate it.
Yeah. And then just in case folks want to reach out or get a hold of you, what's the best way for people to find or connect?
So I'm on LinkedIn, Molly Thompson. Soon you'll be able to find me on the Elevated Achievers, which ELLE, 2 L's, Elevated Achievers podcast. Or you can go to one of our websites like Elevated Energy, which is ELE.
Okay, awesome. Well, we'll make sure that all that gets included in the show notes and all that good stuff. But thanks again for your time today.
Thank you so much, Dan. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to Beats Working, Winning the Game of Work. If something resonated, share the episode and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And remember, clarity isn't something you find. It's something you practice. And getting paid to practice life beats working to get paid.